Good evening, everyone. I now call to order the regular meeting of the Snowline Joint Unified School District Board of Trustees. I'll ask if there are any public comments related to closed session.
There are no public comments at this time related to closed session.
Thank you for that. Being none, the board will now convene to closed session. right, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our open session as we reconvene the regular meeting of the school board. First action is to report from closed session. I'd like to read that item C1, public employee discipline dismissal release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. The following action was taken by the Board of Trustees. Teacher number 6957971 has been placed on unpaid administrative leave effective January 10th, 2021 through March 10th, 2021. A motion was made by Member Berenger with a second by Member Flores, followed by a unanimous roll call vote of the board as follows. President Hernandez, aye. Clerk Kalum, aye. Member Berenger, aye. Member Bristol, aye. And Member Flores, aye. So that takes us now to the Pledge of Allegiance. This evening, I hope you will enjoy with us an image of the district's office's flag as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you will please share the image, and everybody will please stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everybody. Please be seated. All right. And that takes us to community comments. Do we have any public comments tonight?
Yes, we do, President Hernandez. There's one, and I will read that if you're okay with that.
Yes, please do.
Okay. The comment is from Anonymous, and it states, "Thank you to the district office and the board for all of their work towards reopening. I have to comment about my colleague who stated that there was a teacher who didn't want to go back in person because this is easier. Anyone who is doing their job well right now knows that remote school is more than double the work, and I am offended that one person's opinion would be used as an example. As we all know, there are teachers who do the minimum, whether they are in person or remotely. We all want to be in person, but we want to do it safely." And that is the only comment, President Hernandez.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That takes us to item G for adoption of the agenda. Can I please hear a motion to accept the agenda as it's been presented?
I'll
I
move
make a
approval.
motion. Oh,
Member Berenger, thank you for your motion. Can I get a second?
second.
Thank you, Member Bristol. Do appreciate that. A roll call vote. Clerk Kalum. We're going to take the technical difficulty as perhaps vote at the moment. Member Berenger,
Aye.
Member Bristol,
Aye.
Member Flores.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And I'll take us to item H, consent motion. Is there any, do I have a motion to accept the consent motion as it's been presented?
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Member Berenger. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Bristol. Can I get a roll call vote? Clerk Kalum. I think we have lost Member Kalum at the moment. Member Berenger?
Aye.
Member Bristol?
Aye.
Member Flores?
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well for unanimous approval of the consent motion. Nancy, do
President
you have a-
Hernandez, yeah. Did you give, I'm sorry, and I may have missed it, did you give the opportunity to pull any items on the consent agenda?
I had not provided that opportunity. Thank you for that. Did anybody want to pull any items from the consent agenda?
Okay, good.
My apologies for that. So with that, we have just approved the minutes of the study session of the Snowline Joint Unified School District Board by teleconference on December 11th, 2020, and the regular meeting of the Snowline Joint Unified School District Board of Trustees by teleconference on December 15th, 2020. Approval of the personnel motions, approval of resolution number 21-1479 and resolution number 21-1480, authorizing remuneration for a board member, approval and ratification of the memorandum of understanding, the MOU between Community Health Foundation and Snowline Joint Unified School District for COVID-19 testing and vaccinations, of the approval request for establishment of Fund 35 project sub-funds to meet the requirement of the state hardship program for school modernization, and approval ratification of the district financial transactions, taking us to item I1, the review of the 2020-2021 Accountability Report Card, also known as SARCs. Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you, President Hernandez. It's that time of the year again for all of you to review and ultimately, hopefully, approve the school accountability report cards for each one of our learning institutions across the district. I know some of the veteran board members are familiar with this process, but this will be a good refresher, especially and a good introductory for our new board members here. So I'm just going to read a little bit about the SARC process here, what the SARCs are specifically, and provide you with some next steps as you go through the review process so that you'll feel supported during the same. What is accountability, or the School Accountability Report Card, or SARC? Since November 1988, state law has required that schools receiving state funding to prepare and distribute a SARC. A similar requirement is also contained in the Federal Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the ESEA. The purpose of the report card is to provide parents and the community with important information about each school. A SARC can be an effective way for a school to report on its progress in achieving goals. The public may also use a SARC to evaluate and compare schools on a variety of indicators. What information does the SARC contain? Although there is great variation in the design of school report cards, they generally begin with a profile that provides background information around the school and its students. The profile usually summarizes the school's mission, goals, and accomplishments. State law requires that the SARC contain all of the following: demographic data, school safety and climate for learning information, academic data, school completion rates, class sizes, teacher and staff information, curriculum and instruction descriptions, post-secondary preparation information, and last but not least, fiscal and expenditure data. So you'll find that these documents are pretty comprehensive in nature, probably about 17 to 20 pages on average. You'll have 12 of them to review between now and the next board meeting, which provides you a couple of weeks to review. But once again, we want to support you during this process. And I do invite you that if you have any process questions about regarding the SARCs, please feel free to reach out to me. If you have specific questions regarding the school accountability report cards for any site, I would encourage you to go ahead and reach out to the principal at the school site, as they'll be able to provide you the best and most relevant information to help satisfy that question. I have invited the school principals and the other site administrators to attend the January 26th board meeting just during that agenda item time, so that if you are up against the wall as far as getting them all read and reviewed, that they will be here as a way to answer any last minute questions you have, so that you can feel fully confident in the approval process at the next meeting. With that being said, are there any questions that I can entertain for you now before I turn you loose over the next couple of weeks to review those documents?
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I do appreciate it. I guess my only comment right now is all the NA that is strewn throughout the documents, and I assume that's due to our current learning format more than anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely unique times for sure. But yet a pretty rigid process and not very flexible in meeting our current circumstances. So you will see a lot of not applicables probably in that document this time around, and hopefully in the very near future, when we resume to some normalcy, we'll get back into a normal process moving in subsequent years.
Excellent. Member Flores, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question for Mr. Miller real quickly. Again, with all those non-applicables, is there any plans going forward to where if we have to continue on the current trajectory of where we're doing distance learning and stuff like that, is there any way we'll be able to start getting some of those test scores, some of the, to get an idea of where our students are, or is that not until we're able to come back into kind of a regular testing on campus?
That's a great question. In the interim, we do have multiple measures happening in our district. Digital platforms, Renaissance Learning. At the high school level, they're doing the CASP interim assessments. So the IEBs, interim assessment blocks. So there will be some data to refer to regarding that will give us somewhat of a student baseline of where students are currently. At this point right now, we are planning to move full speed ahead with a CASP test in the spring. However, that may change over the next several months regarding what the higher ups decide to do at the state level and the federal level for that matter as well. So, but we'll definitely keep you posted. I'm a true believer in data, student data, to tell us where students are, and we're doing the very best we can under the circumstances at this time.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate the information and a lot of the homework to go through and read and prepare for the next meeting.
My pleasure.
All right. That takes us to item J1, resolution for the resolution number 21-4178 for Snowline Joint Unified School District, CSFA State Aid Intercept Note, 2020-2021 trans. Mr. Chacon.
Thank you, President Hernandez. I would like to just start off by apologizing for the 200+ pages that were attached to this board item. It was a lengthy read, a lot of whereases, I think, and a lot of legal jargon for sure. So I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm going to start with Friday. Last Friday, Governor came out with his budget proposal. There's still a lot of uncertainty around his proposal. I just wanted to kind of clarify one specific point. So through the weekend, a lot of information was coming out by other school entities, CSBA, CASBO, and they were talking a lot about that deferral piece. And I think it was alluded to in his Friday presentation that he was going to be paying down those deferrals, but there was maybe a little misinterpretation on a lot of our behalfs. We were anticipating the deferrals in 2021 down, and that was what a lot of the information that was going out on the weekend was talking about. It was talking about those 2021 deferrals paying down. Unfortunately, we got some verification yesterday from California Department of Finance saying that the 2021 deferrals are still in place. So please plan accordingly. So that came out of Department of Finance yesterday afternoon. So we're still proceeding anticipating our 2021 deferrals. And that's, not the only reason why we're moving forward with the TRAN. But we have to remember, right, that Friday, the governor's budget was a proposal, right? He still has to go to the legislation. It still has to be negotiated. There were a lot of great things in that budget, in his budget proposal, right? He was talking about COLA. He's talking about paying down the deferrals, ongoing contributions to STRS and PERS, record funding for schools, an additional $3.8 billion over Prop 98, extending our summer learning funding. Just a lot of great things in that budget proposal, but just a reminder that it's still a proposal at this point in time, right? Still going to go back to the legislator. I'll be with school services on Friday, getting an update. I would encourage you guys to please join us on the 21st with Ted Alejandre and Capital Advisors, so that we can all, kind of hear the same information and see the same thing. So please try to make time to join us on the 21st. So with that said, we're going to move into the TRAN. Once again, I apologize for the length of the TRAN. So we kind of talked a little bit about this at first interim, just giving you guys a quick little sneak peek that this was coming. Really, our cash shortfall is going to be, at this point, it's in June. We're going to be right around $5 million short in June. Now, a lot can be done between now and June to kind of see if we can make up that shortfall, or if the governor ends up providing additional funding, or our federal stimulus comes in and we get additional funding that way. So a lot can happen between now and June. But I feel strongly that we need to move forward with the TRAN for that just in case. It's definitely something that I don't want to tap into, to be quite honest. We have $58 million in debt already incurred. Even as minimal as this is, $5 million is what we think we're going to need. It's still debt. And I feel like just adding to our overall debt is counterproductive to what we should be doing right now. So I'll give you a little background on why we selected this TRAN. There are a lot of options, and we went through several of them. I've actually been working with a bond attorney because, as you could probably tell through the resolution, there are a lot of legalities. I am by far not an expert in issuing bonds, selling bonds, or procuring bonds. So we recruited a bond expert. She's an attorney, and she's been great. And that was through direction of our auditors, someone that they work closely with as well. So really good relationship there. I'm really glad to have her kind of helping us through this process. So we're going forward with the California School Finance Authority. And we are doing this because, one, it's a California state program. And since it's a state program, we get to fall under the buying power of California. And so that means that not only do we get to fall under their credit, California state credit, but more importantly, we get to fall under their funding guarantee. And so really what's going to happen is, and I can only equate this to real life because, this is kind of how it works in my real life. I'm with a credit union, right? I go out and buy a vehicle through my credit union, and I get a better rate because my credit union automatically pays my car payment out of that account, right? I'm not, the lender's not having to wait to get their money. It's coming directly out of their account. Well, this is kind of what's happening with us. So we're going with the state program, and they're going to take their cut, their money, right out of our account. So we're actually never going to pay this bill. It's going to be paid before we even get our apportionment. So that is one of the reasons why we get to have such a great rate. As we were shopping around earlier on, we were looking at somewhere in the area of 5, 6, 7%. This TRAN, we're looking at 0.3 to 1.5%. And that is only on the borrowed amount. So the less we borrow, the less we pay. So that number, that interest number, that won't be locked in until we actually get to the issuance of those bonds. And we think that's going to be, from what our attorney's telling us and kind of how this is all playing out, we think that's going to be somewhere between the end of January, beginning of February. We're going to have to commit to a dollar amount and an interest rate. CSFA, they are looking to issue bonds on March 8th. And so that's coming up pretty quick. And so we really need to get this turned around rather quickly. And the reason why we have to get this turned around quickly is the county actually has first right to our issuance. And so they have 45 days to decide if they want to help fund our unsecured debt. And that's kind of a mandate. And so we're trying to get this turned around as quickly as possible so that we could start, for those other districts that need it more than we do, right? Those other districts, maybe they're going to be cash strapped in March, right? The first deferrals in February. So we're trying to get this turned around pretty quickly. So far, there's about 100 districts statewide who are joining this program. They range from small, medium to large. For the most part, the districts being mostly impacted with these deferrals are small to medium-sized districts. The larger districts are able to absorb the financial burden a little better than smaller and medium-sized districts. But I will tell you, because it's, like I said, that first interim, because of that cost payment that we have sitting there as cash, that is extremely helpful. That's why we're able to get all the way to June before we become cash strapped. So kudos to the group for maintaining the course and putting that money aside these last few years. Like I said, we anticipate borrowing about $5 million is what we think. We're going to try to whittle that down here in the next couple of weeks. We're trying to borrow as least as possible. But I'm sure as you read through the resolution, you saw a not to exceed. That's a really big number, $19 million, right? And that's what our total deferrals is actually 19.3 million. That's what we're being deferred between February and June. And it was recommended to us by anybody we spoke to, actually, is your not to exceed should just be your total amount of deferrals, because if something happens, you won't have enough time to get back to your board, to get it approved, to go through the 45 days, and then to get your staff paid, right? You'll run out of money. So it's more of a timing issue. So that's why that not to exceed is $19 million. We are by no means remotely going to borrow anything close to that if we can help it. Right? God bless you. The only reason why that $19 million would change, I would have to come back to you guys as a supplemental resolution to increase that not to exceed. And the only reason that would happen is if the governor came back and said, okay, now we're not going to, fund you for January, or they're going to increase additional deferrals. We're not going to get additional state aid. That's the only reason that would happen. We don't anticipate that happening at all, especially with his Friday budget proposal, because it was a really great proposal. It was really favorable to education. So we're very excited to see his commitment to education. So we have really until the end of January, beginning of February, when we make that agreement, when we agree on those terms for us to opt out. So no harm, no foul right now to move forward. If we come back at the next board meeting and something changes, right, then no harm, no foul. We're not paying any fees. We're not paying any type of agreements or commitments by approving the resolution. We don't agree to the numbers until that the beginning of February it's actually made. So this resolution really gives Ryan and myself the ability to move forward with the TRAN as needed, and really doing what's in the best interest of our district, and making sure that we could, my number one priority is making payroll, and to make sure that we can make payroll that June month. On average, our payroll is from $7 to $8 million, depending on the month. That's our monthly payment. So that's my number one concern, my number one priority, to make sure that our staff is. So
Very good, thank you.
I know it's lengthy. I know it's very involved, so I'll do my best.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. I guess I do have some questions, and I'll get this part started. We have a $19 million essentially shortfall because of the deferrals. you're recommending only borrowing $5 million. That $14 million difference then will be leveraged out of our reserves. Is that accurate?
That's correct, Marcus. Yeah.
And to what extent is that? I guess the bigger question is leveraging that much money out of reserves. Where does that leave us should we need additional funding for something unexpected? I'm not one to empty out my savings and hope that, a few months down the line, my boss decides to pay me finally. But essentially, that's what we're doing here. We're borrowing money against something that we should be getting. That is rightfully an income that this district needs. What position are we putting ourselves in by depleting the reserve, and for that period of time?
Yeah, no, great question. I'm equally as I don't want to say concerned, because that's what that not to exceed number is, right? That $19 million. So if we need to go back out and issue additional funds, we can do that. So they're talking about a March 8th distribution of funds, and then they're also talking about an April. They haven't given us a date on that April issuance as well. So if we get through March and we're not feeling comfortable, or something comes up, then we can go back and say, okay, we need an additional $5 million, all the way up to that 19 million. So that's why, at the advice of not only our attorney, but Carolyn Larson, who we work with our auditing firm, they said, please, not to exceed should be the total deferral amount, because you're exactly right. What if, right? What if something happens? We should be able to go back and dip into that pot to make sure that we can.
Okay. I probably have some additional questions, but I do want to open it up to the other board members if you have questions right now. Anybody? Okay. Well, I think the other questions I had, you say that there's a March and April issuance timeline in there. Regardless of when we require the funds, those are the dispersal dates?
They are, yeah. We don't really have control over that. That's really set forth by CSFA.
Okay, and the schedule for the deferrals was that that February timeframe gets reimbursed November of the next school year,
Correct.
all the way down to June being repaid in July.
Correct, yeah.
And
That goes
so
to November, March to October, April to September, May to August, and June to July.
Okay, and so I guess my question is, interest compounding would begin March. Would it be repaid at the deferral reimbursement time, or is there some other term that these loans are held?
I'm not sure I'm following you. Can you say that again, Marcus? Sorry.
So basically, we're going to need funding by June. That deferral essentially was June to July. However, if we're taking that in March, we're accruing interest from March until what time period? Is it that July when we get the deferral, or is there an additional term that the loan carries?
So it can carry for up to 12 months. And so depending on how these, depending on what our cash situation looks like, it could be stretched out. So, being the person I am, we're going to try. We want to pay this as quickly as possible, but it could be up to a 12-month term. Okay.
Yeah, I did see that there was essentially a $5,000 loan fee to get this started. So we're already in it for that much, which I think my calculation shows that at $500,000, we already hit that $5,000 fee. And so taking what you can above that makes sense. And we won't know the interest rate until the end of this month, you're saying?
Yeah, the end of this month. And as soon as I hear the date, I'll let you guys know. They haven't given us a lock date, right? That's what they're calling it. They haven't given us a lock date yet. And so as soon as I get word on when that is, I'll be sure to relay that out to the group. But as far as time frame, it's end of this month, early February, because their plan is to issue March 8th, like I said. So it still has to go out to market. They have to find buyers. then
Yeah, I think based on some of the numbers you're throwing out there, the 1.5% essentially being worst case scenario, we're looking at about a $5,000 or $6,000 per month of interest accrual. So limiting that to the shortest term possible would be appreciated, I suppose.
oh yeah, absolutely, and the lowest amount. Yep, sure.
Okay. Member Bristol, I see your hand up.
And just,
Oh, I'm sorry.
on Friday, it was all the way down to 0.3, right? That's what the rates were. So,
Right.
I mean, 0.5 is probably worst case scenario. By statute, it can go up to 12%. They said that there's no reason why it would. But Friday, it was all the way down to 0.3. So that would be great. That's great news for us.
Right. Yeah, that's near free borrowing there, and I would really like that. But yeah, we'll see where we get to at the end of this month. Again, Member Bristol.
You guys are answering most of my questions as the conversation continues, but what is the other option to make payroll other than doing the tran and having to pay the interest, which nobody wants to do, and we understand that. But what would be the other option? How else do we make payroll?
Yeah, really, it's just monitoring expenses, right? We'd have to find, $5 million worth of expenses to pay between now and June.
So basically $5 million in expenses is not findable between now and June. That's that.
Right.
Yeah, that's not possible.
We're trying to whittle that number down, right? And the other piece too is, and I neglected to mention, would be, whatever that federal stimulus looks like, and depending on when we would receive those funds as well. We're not sure on one, when we're going to receive those funds, and two, what the criteria is around those funds. But if there's enough flexibility for us to use it for payroll, or to use it to help support these deferrals, then we definitely would.
All right. Just again doing some quick math there. It almost seemed like if we could get that lower rate, that perhaps it would be better to take a little bit more funding, just so that we ensure of the comfort level. Even at, I think I just calculated $10 million at that 0.3%, is about $2,500 a month. Significant just to buy us that additional time if it's like in a 6-month repay period. So I guess we will be looking for more information, but the TRAN loan, tax and revenue anticipation note. So just so our community understands what we're speaking of here, a short term, I guess it's a payday loan. You're borrowing today to pay back tomorrow. As we are forced to, we're forced to here by the state. The state has decided that they're not going to give us the disbursements, though we are encumbered with the efforts to educate our community and pay our staff appropriately. So I thank you for all that work. Unless there's any other questions, I think I would ask for a motion to approve the resolution as it's been presented. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve the resolution number 21-4178 for the CSFA state aid intercept notes trans as presented.
Thank you, Member Flores. Do appreciate that. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Member Berenger, thank you very much for that second. And we'll take a roll call vote. Member or Clerk Kalum.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Member Berenger.
Aye.
Member Bristol.
Aye.
And Member Flores.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. A unanimous passage of that resolution. Thank you, everybody, for that. All right. That will take us to item K1. Dr. Holman.
Thanks so very much, President Hernandez. I really appreciate this opportunity here to bring to all of the board members 2 first readings on information, of course, that comes with it. 2 first readings of board policies, specifically 6157 and 0470. Now, in both instances, board members may be aware, might remember, I should say, that both of these board policies are temporary policies. They're connected to these unprecedented times. Boy, how often has that term been used, right? Unprecedented with the TRAN that we were just talking about, now unprecedented with the idea of board policies that don't happen very often at all. And in this case, I think, put forth to all of you. You approved these board policies a while ago, and now we bring them back to you today for the best of reasons. It's really granting grace to kids. You might recall at the previous board meeting, you're going to hear from Alan Miller in just a moment, and did an outstanding job facilitating the work with Willie Jones and Sabrina Merrick and Michelle Scribner, who were here speaking to how we can look to help students who may be deficient in credits and get them across that wonderful and magical line, right? The graduation. And so you're going to hear some more from Alan Miller on that in just a moment, but also on 0470. It's another grace granting situation that we'd like to talk to you about. And so with that, Alan, why don't we start with you so you can speak to those specifics and just give our board members the overview of, again, and maybe updates too. I know all the good work that all of you are doing specific to 6157, and I'll pick up right behind that on 0470. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Ryan. First of all, I want to thank the board for all of your support last month when we brought the idea of this grace over grades to you. So the support means a lot to me, means a lot to Ryan, the rest of the cabinet, as well as Serrano High School. So per your request, I did bring some data to the table today so that we can look specifically at students, minus their names because of confidentiality, but at least demographic breakdown so that you can see, get a picture of the students that we're trying to support in this process. So Michelle Scribner, I want to give her thanks for putting these numbers together for me and getting them to me today so that I could share them with you. And I've got a draft in my email that I'll be pushing send on as soon as we're done with this, so that you'll have those numbers, for your review after the fact as well. So looking at students with seniors with failing grades this past semester, the first semester, looking at gender, we have 18 females, 31 males. I'm going to give you student numbers instead of percentages, but you'll see the percentages on the numbers that I send you via email as well. Students that are on IEPs, special education, we have 9. And then we have one student who's currently on a 504, getting some extra support services through that. We have 48 students that fall under the category of low socioeconomic. We have 1 foster student. And then the breakdown by ethnicity is 29 Hispanic Latino. We have 9 white non-Hispanic, 4 declined to state, 2 Black or African American, not Hispanic, 1 Black or African American Hispanic, 1 American Indian, Alaskan Native, and African American, 1 white Hispanic Latino, and 1 Cambodian. So that's the ethnic makeup there. And then she broke it down a little further by looking at the students' individual circumstances, giving you a breakdown of the students that will benefit through the board policy change that we're recommending to all of you. Students that will be taking 7th period English to recover those credits, 24. Reduction in credits that we talked about as far as elective credits, 36 students will benefit from that. Econ government placed within their normal schedule, we have 25 students. Transferring to Chaparral, I'm happy to say that we're only looking at 3 students that would have to change schools to make graduation a possibility this summer. And then special education students that will return for a 5th year at Serrano, we have 15. So those are the numbers there. Once again, I'll be pressing send to share those numbers for you for a deeper look should you desire. And then you have the attached board policy 6157. Once again, I just want to revisit the verbiage that we talked about, the narrative that we talked about last time around, so you'll see what you're signing off on should you decide to go ahead and approve this in the next couple of weeks. This is the part that we're adding as an addition to BP 6157 will fall under parent involvement. And the descriptor there is grading of distance learning assignments and assessments of end of course knowledge and understanding of the subject matter shall be consistent with district policy on grading for equivalent courses. And this is what we're recommending to add to the board policy. In the event school campuses are closed for an extended length of time as a result of state declared emergencies, such as the COVID-19 pandemic, the superintendent may authorize the modification of the board adopted graduation requirements while maintaining the minimum requirements set forth by the state of California in Education Code 51225.3 and the core academic subject requirements outlined in board policy 6146 for students who will not complete the graduation requirements due to disruption created by the state of emergency. All modifications will be made on a case-by-case basis and authorized by the superintendent or designee once all reasonable methods of completing the board-adopted graduation requirements have been attempted and lead to the determination that the student will not meet the graduation requirements in time to graduate by the end of the 4th year of high school.
Thanks so very much, Alan. I appreciate what you shared right there. Great overview of what we're putting before you for a first reading, mind you, again, for board policy 6157 relative to board policy 0470. I want to share this with you, really, again, right in line with providing for grace for children during these, our students here during these most difficult times. And it comes to us from Athletic Director Joe Knowlton by way of his collaboration with Principal Dr. Willie Jones up at Toronto High School. And this is if we have the ability to get back to sports. We aren't in the athletic realm yet, but if we have that opportunity before the end of this year, what we're proposing here is comes to us, I should say, from Assembly Bill 908, and it allows for the change of the academic probation period when children are impacted in a negative way by at-home learning, which we're in right now, and it extends the academic probation period, thereby allowing for students who have a 2.0 grade point average and have passed 4 or more classes. Normal conditions say that they're on academic probation for 1 year, and if it persists in that same way, they would then be excluded from sports. What this proposal to all of you for you to consider would say is that that exclusion period could be extended as long as for multiple grading periods, I should say, as long as the student continues to maintain a 2.0 grade point average and is passing 4 or more classes. Now, for students who have a 2.0 and are not passing 4 classes, that does not apply. But we feel like, of course, this is something that we want all of you to consider, because we feel like it's a fair approach to granting grace, that if we are back to sports at some point in time, it would allow for those students who fall into that category that I just described to be eligible to participate. So those are the 2 overviews, if you will. You've heard about 6157 at the previous meeting, and it is up for a first reading, just like what you heard today in 0470. It is up for a first reading. It will come back at the next board meeting with 6157 for approval. But I think I can speak for Alan here. We're more than happy to answer any questions you might have right now, knowing that, again, it's for information and first reading. So thank you for allowing me to share that with everyone, President Hernandez, and I'll turn it back to you for any questions as need be.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. Do appreciate that. No, it's great information, and definitely takes a more look at to see all the impacts, but I think it's the right direction, the right thing to be doing right now. Do we have other comments from board members? Seeing none, thank you for the information. Everybody, if we can please continue to review that, and we will take the second reading at the next meeting and pass it at that time. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item K2, Dr. Holman.
Thanks so very much, President Hernandez. As has been really the custom since we began back in March, for the most part, with these difficult times that we have right now. That's the COVID-19 pandemic. We've endeavored to provide information to all of the board members here in this meeting with an update on our learning design, where we are at each and every board meeting. So at this point in time, Robert Chacon is going to help me out. We have a presentation. We'll certainly, again, share it with all of you after the board meeting. And just as a reminder, too, I want to thank James Fields for the great work that he does on many fronts, one of which is this presentation is always posted after this board meeting. We get it up on our website so that, of course, all the public can access this information. So again, if we have over 20, a couple dozen is probably the best estimate, a couple dozen slides, many of which will be familiar to all of you, and they're familiar because that means that what is happening has not changed, but we have new information. And I'll make certain as I go along to provide all of the details that I feel are necessary, but certainly don't hesitate at all to interject a question as need be. So Robert, thanks so very much for bringing up the presentation. You can see that first slide, we're on to number 2, and these outcomes really haven't changed. We're endeavoring to always develop this notion of shared understanding amongst all of you, so you know what's happening in both of our learning designs, which are at home and in person. We'll drill down on that, of course, today, but then also make certain at the very second to last slide, I should say, make certain that all of you feel comfortable with the commitments that we're making and that you charge us with. And so going on to slide 3 there, Robert, with those outcomes. Here's the agenda. Here's what we'll touch on. Many familiar, a couple newer ones. The public health guidance, as we always remind ourselves what's driving us. We'll share with you what's happening in the learning designs that are currently in place. Always give you an update on the data specific to the pandemic and other related conditions. Today we'll hone in on a little bit more of the hospitals in our local areas, and then certainly give you a status check, if you will, on in-person learning, where we are with that, and also the Safe Schools for All plan. Since our last meeting, that plan was not made public. It was made public on December 30th, so we need to provide you with information there, and also the latest on vaccinations, so you know where we are as a county, as well as a high desert and even the local area of Snowline, and finishing up with those next steps. So with those agenda items there, Robert, and I go to number 4 here. Here's the reminder. We appreciate this direction that you seem to just be wonderful in supporting, and that is that we're following public health guidance at the federal, state, and local levels, the CDC, California Department of Public Health, and then the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health guide us, right? We're committed to that science. We aren't the experts, so we spend time, specifically a lot of time, with our local public health officials. And Robert, as we go to slide 5, there's just that guidance theme, if you will. We're not going to be the smartest, we'll be the smartest, but not necessarily the fastest. I'll speak that correctly. And I say that because I jumped ahead. Boy, we have had to be humble. I know I have, because change has been needed on an ongoing basis relative to the science and that public health guidance that we've been using as the drivers for our decisions. And so, Robert, into slide 6, again, you'll be familiar with those. We do have 2 learning designs in most general form, at home and in person at the schools. And with that at home, we're fortunate to have 2 options for our students: remote school, connected to their neighborhood school, if you will, and then homeschool, that homeschool design at Snowline Academy. And Robert, on slide 7, we'll just share, and also on slide 8, we'll share the quick overviews of the homeschool design. You've seen this before. We haven't changed the slide. And then on to 8, as we go to that next one, there's the remote school one too. Those 2 slides haven't changed. They continue to function effectively for our students as we are embedded in this at-home learning. And when we go to slide 9, though, I want to provide that reminder of those metrics. These haven't changed per se. And I say that, you're going to see why I said per se a little bit later on. But the 3 metrics that are being monitored at the state level now, we're looking at the state, that then filters to the county and ultimately locally to ourselves. We have 3 metrics that are very important in terms of making, or I shouldn't even say making, forcing decisions upon ourselves specific to in-person learning. And those three metrics are daily cases, right, that are new. They're adjusted by virtue of numbers of tests. It's a little technical there, but they're also adjusted per 100,000 to be able to compare all communities across the county. The positivity rate, and that just simply put, of all the people who take a COVID-19 test, what percentage of people are testing positive? And then the Healthy Places Index was added most recently. It used to just be the first two. That third one provided for an extra positivity rate in areas that are deemed as not as healthy as the norm by virtue of a multiple indicator index that I shared on a couple occasions previously. So with that reminder in terms of how we're monitored, when we go to number 10, Robert, in the next slide, there's that same slide. The tiers remain, right? Yellow being most minimally impacted by COVID-19, going from orange to red to purple. And actually what has been co-opted is the new term, and that's deep purple color for extensive daily cases, daily case rates that we'll be talking about, not to mention those two positivity rates. But just as that reminder, to get out of purple means that we'd have to be below a case rate of 7 daily new cases per 100,000 residents, and also have our positivity rates in both instances be below 8%. And so, Robert, as we go to the next slide, let's start drilling down on some of the data. This might look familiar to all of you. It comes from, from the state's website, and specifically you can see Southern California. I just wanted to highlight the ICU bed availability. That says, I know it's fairly small, it says 0% down there. Now, what I can share with you is, and I guess what I want to drill down on a little bit here too, is the idea that our hospitals have been impacted significantly. It's probably not lost on everyone because, in fact, St. Mary's, for instance, which is which is located in Apple Valley, they've been in the news, not just locally, but even nationally, as an example of hospitals in California, not to mention in our entire nation, that are being negatively impacted. What I can share with you when we think about the high desert up here, those ICU beds and the availability really is down to 0. I have the capacity to be able to access that information, not to mention work with the public health officials who provide us with those details. It is very challenging right now. And so it's just that reminder, whatever we can do in terms of that civic duty, right, to do our part to prevent getting ourselves into hospital situations is certainly needed more than ever right now. Robert, when we go to the next slide, if you don't mind, I want to give you some specific data so you can see some numbers. You see on the left-hand side, the blue area, it's highlighted as Snowline Joint Unified School District, and those are our district boundaries, in the purple in the middle picture. And speaking of purple, that indicator is in purple. It stops at 10, but the number below is really our daily new case rate for the most recent reporting week at 86.1 new cases, that daily case rate for the period that extends from, as you see up at the top there, December 27th until the 2nd of January. And then just below that, you can see the case rate, which shows that the most recent reporting figures that come to us from the state come to us from the county, via the state. The previous week was from the 20th of December until the 26th of December. Now, I know you can read. I say those, though, because I think there's a really important piece here. We had a little increase, if you will, in our daily case rate. But in both instances, as we talk with our public health officials, we've heard this probably publicly too, and that is that those numbers are probably a bit of a mirage, only because we've got some holidays that fall in there. And when I say holidays, what they've found is that during holidays such as maybe Christmas Eve and Christmas tied together, New Year's as being another holiday, that many times the number of tests aren't taken to the levels that they normally would be. So I put that out there just so you know that that's what the public health officials are saying about the numbers, not just in Snowline, but across across the county, that they might be a bit higher than what are showing just because of those holidays that fall within those windows. And Robert, as you just continue through here, and I can kind of move a little bit quicker now, I want to show you over the next, I think it's 5 slides here. And again, these data are all available on the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health's website. And you can toggle through about 10 to 12 pages of data at any point in time. But you can see on the left-hand side, Oak Hills. Oak Hills is within our boundaries. Now, I'll tell you, not all of Oak Hills, and that is the way that Oak Hills, as I guess a city, if you will, or a town proper, is reported here. But I still think it's important that we just keep tabs on all the communities within our boundaries. Oak Hills has a daily case rate of 191.2 and a positivity rate of 28.7% of those who take tests are turning up positive. Now, Robert, with that background, you'll see the other 4 here. As you go to the next one, I think is Phelan. There it is. Phelan, you can see, has a daily case rate of 118.1, with that roughly almost the same positivity rate as Oak Hills is 28.5%. Pinion Hills being next is in, you'll see that in the high 40s, 49.7, with a positivity rate of just over 30%. And then as we move to the last 2 here, you're going to see Victorville and Wrightwood. So with Victorville, you can see a daily case rate of 175, and that, again, kind of in that same realm, 1 out of 4 people testing positive. And then lastly, Wrightwood, right below that. Let's go to that next slide. Thank you, Robert. Just over 50, 52.4 is a daily case rate with a positivity rate of 18.5%. Those are positivity rates for the communities and those community boundaries. Again, just attracting attention to the Wrightwood piece up there. Those are the community boundaries for Wrightwood, and the tracking there through that GIS program for residents within the boundaries of Wrightwood and the previous communities within our Snowline boundaries. And so, Robert, thanks for helping me with those. I want to just drill down, if you will, on the latest data there. You've seen this format. We've been doing it for multiple times. At the very bottom, what you'll see is for San Bernardino County, the daily case rate per 100,000 over the course of time there. And specifically on January 2nd, you see it 102.76. So that increase from October 20th to now. And you might wonder why that is yellow. All those numbers in yellow are highlighted because those numbers right there are adjusted numbers. And when you see that number, I'll just indicate real quickly, what does adjusted mean? The state has I guess I'd call it almost an incentive program for testing. And that is when a county's testing surpasses the median, it actually gets its case rate adjusted based on the number of testing. It really was an incentive process to be able to share with the entire state here. Hey, we need to get testing going. But those are the adjusted rates. And so know that those numbers are actually a bit higher based on real numbers. But I give to you the adjusted numbers because those are the numbers that indicate whether or not we're able to open up our middle and high schools by getting out of the purple tier, because our county rate is the indicator and is the controller, if you will, as to whether or not middle and high schools can get back to in-person learning. You see the positivity rates going from that red zone of 6.7 was really about the last time in late October when we were in the red tier on the positivity rate, and you can see it at 24.06%, and then also the HPI. Those are for San Bernardino County. As for the next slide, Robert, in 19, we talk about Snowline. You can see our daily case rate going from 33 to 86 now, a high of that December 12th and 19th. It'll be interesting to see what happens on January 9th, as well as on January 16th, given that we'll have the influx at that point in time of the holiday season. Unfortunately, the holidays have proven locally, as well as at the state and national level, to show that there are spikes. I guess I'll always hold out hope that there won't be a spike, but we'll see those coming forth in the next 2 to 3 weeks and see where we land with our daily case rate for Snowline. Also, those other 2 columns just show you what the raw numbers are in terms of how many people are testing positive weekly in the adult, or total, I should say, as well as how many of those are youth cases. Robert, thank you for 19. We'll get us to 20. So we'll drill down on some of the newer information that's happened since our last meeting in December. First of all, I want to attract attention to in-person cohorts and elementary school waiver and give you an update in that information. So all of you know and have been very supportive of us. We greatly appreciate that we paused our in-person learning, that return of our in-person cohorts, specifically on the learning side, those kids with acute needs. Also sports and conditioning, which is actually designed in a cohort fashion. And then thirdly, the elementary school waiver. We have one school, Pinyon Hills Elementary School, that was previously approved for elementary school waiver. Our other schools are poised to be approved once the daily case rates get below that purple tier. At this point, they're not. All that is to say, we put those on pause because of the conditions of COVID-19, as you're well aware. Right now, what we've put out there is for the middle of February. So we won't reopen those until at the earliest time until the middle of February. I can share with you sports and conditioning because that's outdoors. That always, presents a different design there, but still for all of them, we feel like it's the best move. But we're going to, as that last bullet says there, continue to monitor those conditions and inform you, because if we can get some significant drops, we'll certainly want to consider getting ourselves back. But safety always has to be the primary concern, and that's why we are where we are with that, at least until February 16th. From slide 20 gives us to 21, the Safe Schools for All plan on December 30th. That really caught educators, to be quite frank, off guard. We did not know, as an educational community, not just in Snowline, but really up and down the state, that California, as communicated by Governor Newsom, would be forthcoming with as is said here, the Safe Schools for All plan during that holiday break. But what was communicated was a 4-point plan based on funding, based on the ideas of updated safety plans, number 2, also in the idea of giving support to sites, with the third piece having that transparency that is ultimately an accountability dashboard, so that when we can reopen under this plan, which I'll give you some more details on that the local communities have an understanding about the safety measures that are in place and should be in place to ensure the safety of all the kids. So just real quickly, and I might cue up Robert Chacon just to give us with a little bit of help, or give me a little bit of help, just in the event that he wants to provide more details. What was originally budgeted was $2 billion, but it's in grant form, actually. That was further clarified after Governor Newsom had shared that we're $450, maybe even up to $700 per ADA, but it's in grant form. And it's actually a timeliness issue specific to this phased in approach, where we bring in we as an educational community up and down the state, once readiness is there, and we'll talk about that, grades TK through 2 in the middle of February, right, the mid-February date, and then thereafter allow for grades 3 through 6 to come in, given that the safety plan would be submitted, which is where those grant funds come, and that safety plan is updated with all the new checklist information that we're going to be held accountable to. One of the big indicators of that checklist that is I think a significant change we're hearing at the state level is extensive COVID-19 testing for students as well as staff members, all the while knowing that distance learning is still going to be an option. But in that purple tier, and getting back to those daily case rates, that those numbers have to get to below 28 before students in that phased in approach, TK through 2, and also grades then 3 through 6 later on, can come back. And again, you might say, well, what will it look like? We're still waiting on, in that third dark bullet there, we're still waiting on the details from the California Department of Public Health specific to what's on that checklist. So we still need information on that. When we talk about the monies too, again, that's based upon a grant. And you might say, well, will we submit that grant? Well, quite possibly, but we have to have our safety plans in that. We don't know what that checklist is. That deadline is set forth for February 1st. And all of a sudden right now we're on January 12th, and that that deadline's getting to be shorter and shorter, to be quite honest. And again, we can't even enact this unless we get our daily case rate, right, in our county here below 28, all the while knowing that, there's an accountability piece and a dashboard that we'd have to put together. Hey, Robert, I've talked a lot about this. You've done some good work here, and I appreciate you working with me on this. Anything else you want to add relative to the money, not to mention that safety plan that we're still waiting on relative to the checklist?
Yeah, just a lot of details still hopefully forthcoming here in the near future. But I just want to throw one more date out there for you guys that, that February 1st date is the submission of the application, but you have to be providing in-person instruction by February 15th. So, once again, just going back to what Ryan was saying, that daily case rate, we really need to work on that as a community to get that case rate down so we can get our students back into school.
Yeah, it's so very well said there, Robert. And I also just add to that, and then there's another date into March. And so if in fact our case rate isn't down into that 28 rate, there's shall I say a declining number, right, Robert? Is that accurate to say, relative to the monies that are made available per student? Do you want to speak to that too?
Yeah, it's a sliding scale, right? So if you can't make it on the first round in February, then you get another shot in March. Same rules apply, same checklist, and I'm not sure what the dollar amount. I think it was $350 if I remember correctly, and that's all calculated off your LCFF. The other thing that schools are really starting to figure out with that $450 per student ADA. It's called an incentive grant, right? It's designed to incentivize us to get kids back into school. The issue is with the testing requirements that is within the grant, it's actually costing you more than $450 per student to get the doors open. So it's really not, it's support. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. It's support. But if you're falling under this incentive grant, the dollar amount per ADA isn't enough to support the testing requirements within the grant.
Yeah, it's so very well said there. And I would just add finally that specifically that, then our work with Ted Alejandre at the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, we've really, as superintendents, felt like we wanted to do some advocacy up the state level. We absolutely appreciate testing. On the other side, vaccinations too, which we'll talk about in a moment, but say that how can we allocate some of the funding in that direction and not just have it based upon this testing for the reasons in part of what Robert just talked about and the challenges of that funding model there. President Hernandez?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Holman, Mr. Chacon. I thought I had read or understood that with us being in that deep purple category, all that we had to do was have the plan and availability to be opened by February 15th to qualify for that incentive grant. That if we are still in that deep purple, we don't have that option to return, but we did have to provide that plan and be moving or have it essentially we're open, but because of our county rate, we can't. Is that accurate?
If I understand you correctly, are you saying there, President Hernandez, and I apologize, I'm not quite following here, that we submit, and even though we're not below the 28 rate, right, is we're still poised and ready to receive the funds? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm asking, yes.
Yeah, I know we're needing more details, and I think we're hoping that those are forthcoming. I know I've got a meeting on Friday, and I hope we'll get some of those. Robert, can you help me too with that one too? I mean, I think I understand that might be a possibility, but I'm not certain on that.
Yeah, it definitely is. We were talking about that. Can't remember when. It was in our CBO meeting. But we just aren't sure if they're going to qualify us for the 450 per ADA, or if that's also a sliding scale. But we can definitely apply. We're just not sure kind of where we're going to fall as far as funding goes. But you're exactly right. Even though our county is in deep purple, we're poised, ready to go. Once we get the details from the checklist and the safety plan, we do have to go back and do some additional work with our bargaining groups. We have to have testing set up. There's a lot to be done in a really short amount of time. So
Yeah, it seems like there's a monumental amount of work to be done, and every day we lose a day because, like you said, this is only a proposal. This is not a budget. This is not a plan yet by the state. It is simply, this is a wish list, and we have a February 1st suggested timeline to be able to open by February 15th. It doesn't seem that the state really has I don't know, a solid plan to really make this achievable for everybody.
Yeah, very well said. And so thank you for bringing that up, President Hernandez. You articulated that well. You heard that confirmation from Robert and also from Dennis Zimmerman too here as he worked with our lawyer firm. You know, that's what we know right now. And so we'll see where we land as we move forward. But there's the Safe Schools for All plan, and looking at that at that opportunity day by day to get the details we need to be able to provide you with the answers specific to where we might land as we move forward with that opportunity. And then, Robert, as we go to slide 22, the vaccinations, I'd given a preview about that. It's not lost on anyone that, vaccinations are available. In the larger scale, phase 1A is currently being vaccinated. In phase 1B, what we're hoping for is by the early parts of February. And I say 1B because educators are in phase 1B. And then we've heard the talk of, and again, within 1A and within 1B, there are tiers. I'll talk about that in just a moment here. But within 1B, you've got your 75-year-olds, even beginning today. There was talk about mashing together, if you will, all the tiers in 1B so that we get 65-year-olds as well, and those in congregate settings. And then you've got phase C, 1C by April, if you're just wondering about that. Those are the 50 to 64-year-olds. You can see with those with underlying conditions below 50 all the way to 16, because that's where the Pfizer vaccine did its research around. I think Moderna was down to 18. And then all other essential workers with high exposure. And we know right now 2 large facilities are being opened up. There's been conversation even had today, right, around Disneyland, Dodger Stadium, San Diego's baseball stadium. And that's exciting. And also that talk about getting all doses out for first rounds, right? If we're just talking on the national level, over 20 million doses. And information coming out just today that let's get all folks for first rounds, with more facilities like CVS's and Walgreens and you name it coming on board. So that's kind of a larger scale. Robert, when you go to 23, I wanted to drill down to our local area though, and vaccinations in San Bernardino County, and give some more relevant information, hopefully, to what might be impacting ourselves here. So when we think about phase 1A, you heard me mention the tiers. And tiers 1 and 2 right now in San Bernardino County are getting the shots. Tiers 3 right now, which are things like laboratory workers, dental and oral health clinics, individuals who are pharmacy staff, and specialty clinics, aren't quite getting them per San Bernardino County. The last information I got from them, most recent information I've gotten from them, I should say. Now, educators are in phase 1B, like we talked about, which is great, right? It's that next group. And San Bernardino County Department of Public Health, our most recent meeting last week with the chief medical officer, Dr. Sakir, I appreciate what he said. He said, hey, I want to partner with all of you. I want to work with all of you. We need some help. And I say that not for in any disparagement toward San Bernardino County Department of Public Health. I do think we do need to link arms and do our work. And so what we've been doing as a group of superintendents is working with the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, who is Ted Alejandre, to work on plans to be able to regionalize this effort as much as is allowable, so that we can bring up some solutions in the high desert. You've heard me use the term often, my apologies for its overuse, but I do believe we get under-resourced up here in the high desert. So we as a high desert superintendent group are just trying to seek any and all solutions. An example, having talked with the president of Victor Valley College, he has 2 freezers that have the capability to house the Pfizer doses, which are having to be housed at extremely low temperatures. And so in a meeting with Dan Walden and other superintendents, and again, please know, this was just brainstorming as of last Friday afternoon, but the idea of, well, how can we start to link our arms again and work together to bring those resources up here, get them onto our school sites, get them onto our community areas so that we can accelerate the vaccination process in any way, shape, form. And we do have schools that are identified as points of distribution. That's what that POD stands for. Points of dispensary, I should say, is what POD stands for. And so we've got Wrightwood identified right now by the county, but I want to give credit to Robert Chacon and him saying, just like I think we've been trying to say as superintendents, we've got to find ways to expand this. Robert, you want to talk about the work you're trying to do to expand the PODs piece so that we have more points of dispensary up here in our area?
Yeah, we've been working with Office of Emergency Services for several years on these points of dispensary. And these last several years, we've been using flu shots as kind of a dry run in identifying points of dispensary. So far, Wrightwood is on their list. I think about 3 years ago, we did a big flu shot campaign up there, and the county agreed to use Wrightwood as a point of dispensary. About 2 years ago, we used Pinion Mesa Middle School, and so now Pinion Mesa Middle School is also on that list of point of dispensary. So I've reached back out to our contacts there. Wrightwood is on the list for a pod regarding the COVID-19 vaccine. So we're working on pinning down some dates as far as when we can do a mass distribution of vaccine at Wrightwood Elementary. I'm trying to get them on board for Pinion Mesa Middle School as well. And I'm trying to get them to actually come out and do a site walk. There's quite a few hoops we have to jump through before a school site can be identified as a pod. There's specific square footage and bathroom requirements and parking lot requirements and trash requirements, just a lot of stuff that we have to kind of go through to get our schools on board. We're hoping we can maybe streamline that because of the situation that we're in. So I'm looking to go maybe Quail Valley Middle School or Baldy Mesa Elementary School, somewhere on the eastern end of our district, to help support those areas as well. Also working on our DMAT team to see if we could start utilizing maybe the county fairgrounds as a large distribution vaccination as well. So those are kind of all in the works, but just know Wrightwood is the only one that's on the list, and we're waiting for confirmation on some dates moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Member Colom, I see a hand up.
Yes, what is an educator? How do they define educators? Is it
Yeah,
any school personnel or?
That's a great question there, Member Colom. Originally, what we were hearing, right, and this is maybe tied to your question, I wonder if you had heard this too, right? Originally, it was those who were in direct contact with children, right? And so when even before the vaccinations were approved, that there was this talk of it would be teachers and instructional associates, right? Those individuals who had direct contact. Now educators are educators, right? It's everybody in the educational realm. So that's been opened up. So it's a great question that you ask, because the original definition of educators and those who would be on that list changed to it being any and all educators. And I would argue including yourselves too in that realm, the board members. A great question there, Member Colomini. And then if I were to, if there's anything else, just jump in there, Member Colom, okay, if I missed something there. But relative to vaccinations too, I just want to thank you for the approval of Borrego Community Health Foundation. I mean, that's an opportunity for us to bring that entity, as you saw in that MOU that you approved, out to our sites for testing, but also vaccinations, right? So we greatly appreciate that support. And I just want to reiterate, there are ongoing meetings for us as superintendents, and I'm just highlighting this piece because I just appreciate the mobilization of all of the 33 school districts in San Bernardino County to really elevate throughout the county, and specifically in the high desert, ways for us, even though I don't have the solutions right now, know that we're really active in trying to find solutions to be able to up the numbers of vaccinations as phase 1A gets completed, that we're ready to roll with phase 1B, and those are our educators, so that we can get as many educators who are so willing vaccinated right away. So Robert, thanks for helping out with that slide, and then it gets us to 24. And here's just the three pieces that we feel like are the burning issues right now for us to walk away with, so that you understand where we're headed between now and our next meeting. That's that developing vaccine solutions for dispensing them. You heard from Robert quite well what we're endeavoring to do. Hopefully I provided some information in that, but also assess the viability of that Safe Schools for All grant. It's an interesting opportunity for us. Those timelines are very, very tight. They're challenging, but and they're certainly even made more challenging when we don't have all that information, kind of knowing the rules of what we need to be doing, so to speak. So know that we're assessing that on a regular basis. We'll continue to update you with that. At our next board meeting, we would hope that, which is on January 26th, we'll have much more clarity on what that Safe Schools for All grant looks like. And then finally, as we always say, but I don't think it's anything other than really, really important for us to put on this slide, we continue to monitor conditions for reopening of our in-person learning. It's not lost on all of you. That term, unprecedented times, I've mentioned multiple times, but boy, things change in a rapid fashion. So we appreciate your support in the notion of us making the decisions that are necessary to ensure safety across our entire Snowline learning community. And we'll continue to always do that and keep you abreast of all those changes that are necessary. So it gets us to the very last slide, and 25 is questions. And I want to make sure, Member Colom, I see your hands up. I just want to make sure, I don't know if that's from the previous question you had, or if you had another one that maybe I missed. Maybe not. So Member Colom, if somehow you have a question, certainly just stop me. President Hernandez, I'll turn it over to you. I don't know if you or any of the other board members have questions that all of us are more than happy to answer.
No, thank you for that. I think I got my question out earlier regarding the deep purple condition that we're in and where we're going from here. That Borrego piece is going to be rather important, and I think more discussion to be had on that front. So we'll definitely continue that. Are there any other questions or comments from the board members?
Actually, I do have a question. I had heard concerning the Safe Plan for All involves some Cal OSHA guidelines. Had you heard any specifics concerning that?
Yes, yes to the first piece. They include those. Hopefully there'll be some alignment. I think that's the real hope, right? That we get some alignment, because people like Dennis Zimmerman and Robert Chacon and James Fields in their areas in which they operate certainly understand how those challenges can be when multiple agencies, right, have differing, and I would argue unaligned guidelines and requirements. And so the hope, and again, not knowing what's out there yet, Member Behringer, the hope is that there becomes an alignment relative to the outcomes that you just mentioned. Now, whether or not that's going to occur, I guess we'll have to see. But I think that's some of the hope. But Robert and Dennis, anything you want to share to that relative to Cal OSHA?
I'm going to share that the governor's proposal for safety includes the kitchen sink and the bathtub. It has got everything and anything that anybody has mentioned about safety for schools all wrapped up into one new, larger plan.
Yeah, I would second that. I'm kind of just looking at my notes from the grant. We sat in a webinar over the weekend actually, and the first item is we got to follow Cal OSHA COVID-19 emergency standards, and the next requirement is we have to follow COVID-19 school guidance checklists and standards from CDPH. So hopefully, like Ryan said, they're aligned, because we honestly don't know at this point. We haven't seen them, so we'll have to follow both of those protocol in order for the grant.
And then probably including weekly testing for students and staff.
So it says asymptomatic testing for employees and students per CDPH guidance, and so that's still forthcoming as well.
Any guesstimate on a round number of that cost for testing on a weekly or biweekly basis?
I'll look to Z on that. He's probably spent more time than I have on that one.
You know, there's really not, because the students and staff that we're going to need to test are those that are in person for school and staffing, and we don't know what that'll look like. You know, we also don't know what help may come down for testing, but if you the districts that are doing this are really multiplying student and staff tests times $150 a piece, because even though health insurance is supposed to provide that, when you as a school district and you for students and you as an employer, you know, when you require it, which is what the state's now telling us, guess who picks up the tab now?
Yeah, I was just going to add, having talked with superintendents, Dennis is really accurate there. The calculation we're hearing from other superintendents is around 3 to 4 tests, just like Dennis mentioned. So, meaning when we're looking at that $450. So, I appreciate that question.
In the MOU with Borrego, there were two clauses in there. Number 11, where it states that Borrego reserves the right to collect health insurance information and bill for services outlined in this agreement pursuant to any individual insurance guidelines. So essentially, they can go after the insurance company for reimbursement. And also number 13, where it states that Borrego shall not charge the district, and the district shall not be liable to Borrego for any cost or expenses paid or incurred by Borrego in performing services for at specific locations of the district. That does not indicate that we would not be on the hook for the per test cost.
Well, and if we look at that MOU, Borrego signed it on December 10. We signed it on December 30, and the governor's come out with his plan since then. So stand by, or as Alan likes to say, stand by to stand by. We're trying to keep up with this. We absolutely are. And we're trying to put ourselves in the best possible place. And every time we seem to put ourselves in the best possible place, we get a hit check. You know, something happens, and we're going to keep moving forward, but we're also going sideways occasionally as well.
Yeah, I think it's so critically important that we get that MOU with Borrego set up, that we are poised to be able to do the testing, the vaccinations as we need. But every time you come up with a new plan, everybody else's plans change. So we'll wait for those proposals to become a little bit more firm than just that and go from there, I suppose.
Yeah, Peggy, I thought I saw Member Bristol first and then Member Cologne. Member Bristol?
Yeah, just going back to the dollars and cents. I believe Chacon said that it doesn't make, I mean, it's going to cost us more money than the grant's worth. So I don't know, just going to waste our time.
I mean, it's a really fair point there, Member Bristol. And I think, again, like Dennis said, stand by to stand by. I think we're going to get the final indicators right, because I don't want to call it a guessing game per se, but we're making our best estimates based upon the information that we have that isn't complete yet. But it's a very fair point. And if that comes to be the case, we'll certainly bring all that to you and say, well, you know, what's the most prudent course of action? And I appreciate you bringing that up, because that certainly has to be in our minds as we make these decisions as we move forward. And then Member Clum, did you have a hand up, or was that?
Yes, I have a question that came to my mind. One is, are we going to test people who have received the vaccination? Number one. And then number two, I understand that students can't receive the vaccination because they have not tested it on people under 16, which raises kind of a conundrum.
Yeah, it sure does. So maybe I'll go backwards. So in that, you know, my understanding is the research is being done right now as we speak, right? I think I made mention that the Pfizer, the very first approved vaccine, Pfizer, right, went down to 16 years of age. And then Moderna, I think, went down to 18. And so as a result, I think the studies are going on right now as we speak. I don't know the timelines for the results of those studies. I think there's still a little bit of ways out. So you're exactly right. There is certainly a conundrum there relative to you know, the vaccination piece. As for testing, then your first part was talking about testing. Is that right, Member Clom? and you mentioned, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right. So like if you're an educator or you're going to test staff, I heard you say that we're going to keep testing staff. We're going to test staff that have already received a vaccination.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. Dennis, Robert, have either of you heard on any details on the testing design yet?
There is no clarity been given on that as of yet, but I have received that question from staff members at least a half a dozen times in the first 2 days this week. I mean, it's a great question.
And then you've also got staff, people who already had COVID already. Are we going to test people who've already had it like 3 months ago? Like Dr. Holman, are you going to be up for being tested? I mean,
it's a very fair question. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly willing, but again, do I end up taking resources away from others? That would be my concern. I tested positive a while ago and cleared that since then. But it's a great point, and I think that falls in that category, like Dennis said, it's to be determined. So great questions from you, Member Colomb, for sure. And then Member Bristol, did I see a hand again? No, okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm a little slow here on the hands here. President Hernandez, I'll turn that back to you.
You saw the hand. I just never mind.
Not a problem. No, excellent information as always, Dr. Ullman. Do appreciate that. We'll stand by. We'll stand by to hear that good plan. Get as much good information as we can to be able to move forward. Our deep purple status is still highly concerning, and how we get this, only God knows right now. So let's just keep moving forward. All right, that concludes item K2. That takes us to item I for board member comments. Call on Member Clerk Kaloum if you have any comments.
well, I wish I did have some comments. And one of these days we can get back to doing our business of going through schools and seeing kids, and I might have some comments, but I don't know. Not really.
Not a problem. Thank you. Member Behringer.
Thank you, President Hernandez. I just wanted to thank Mr. Chacon and his team for all that work on the TRAN program, and hope that they reduce the deferrals so that we don't have to go so far into debt. And also, I'm encouraged by the Safe Schools for All plan. It's definitely a move in the right direction, but if we could get some specifics in a timely manner, that would be ideal. So I appreciate your sharing all the information that you have available to you. And I encourage everybody to attend that session on the 21st so that we can all share in receiving the same budgetary information as well. And that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Behringer. Member Bristol, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just a couple. So I'm a mission-driven guy. Back to the mission statement. I just want to thank all the instructors and everyone out there that's doing their job. It's a difficult job doing this distance learning. I want to give a special thanks to Dr. Willie Jones. Quite a while ago, this is kind of a while ago, that parents receive all these messages, text message or the voice messages. So I happen to be a parent, and one of the messages that sticks out to me the most came from Dr. Willie Jones, and it was the lean on me. And I don't know if you guys all heard it or saw it, but it was impressive. So in these times when it is difficult and no one has answers, and I'm in the emergency medical profession, and we don't have the answers. So I don't expect the school districts to have the testing and vaccination answers and protocols on where to put sick people and where to go and what to do, because the people that are in the front lines, we don't have those answers yet. So everybody give each other some grace. Thanks again for that lean on me message. It was quite a while ago now, but it was great. And then also, when I'm speaking of grace, the grace for the high school students and the high school seniors, we really need to pour it on for that. We got to give all those kids the best shot that we can, and that's all I got.
Thank you very much, Member Bristol. Member Flores.
Yeah, just want to say thank you for all the hard work, Dr. Holman and all the assistant superintendents and your guys' staff. Again, I know things are changing, seeming like every single day. And so thanks for chasing all those answers for us. We really appreciate it. I want to thank all of our principals, everyone who works on each site. Again, to our teachers, I know it's not easy right now, so thanks for the extra work you're putting in. And just want to give a little extra encouragement to the parents out there tonight. Hang in, it's not easy. I know that a lot of kids are struggling with the distance learning, but again, just like Member Bristol was saying, we don't have all the answers yet. And so continue to please be patient and do your best. And to all the students, if there happens to be any students watching a board meeting tonight, just keep trying your best. And we're really grateful for you. We really are doing everything we can for you.
Thank you, Member Flores. And my comments are just, I think it's echoing a few members tonight. I just want to share my thanks and appreciation to the finance group in preparing those TRAN documentation resolution. These treasured times have brought so much additional work to so many of us. And this group has clearly showed their professionalism in venturing into new ground. So thank you very much for that. Mr. Chacon and your entire staff, please share our gratitude to them. Very pleased also to provide that opportunity of grace over grades with the board policies that we're reviewing. Snowline has an exceptional graduation requirement. These times are causing so much disruption. I had the opportunity to speak with a few of our teachers at Serrano and know that this will help so many in so many ways. So that's great work. All the superintendents, thank you so much for taking care of that for our kids and understanding everybody where they are right now. And to that end, everyone, please hang in there. To our teaching staff, thank you for going in every day, making those decisions. You're the heart and soul of what all these kids have to experience, and it's like no other. So please hang in there. Please stay strong. At times it feels like we're coming closer to the end of this pandemic, but looking at the numbers tonight from Dr. Holman, from the county, so discouraging. Please help us get back to where we, get back to school. Help our kids get back to where they need to be. Please, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and I think that concludes board member comments. We'll go to administrative comments. Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you, President Hernandez. I'll keep my comments very brief today, as you've echoed a lot of my own sentiments here tonight. Everybody is extremely tired, and it seems like we've come out of a tremendously hard and challenging year, and it's just as hard on the front end of 2021. But stay strong. We will get through this year. I was very disheartened by events that transpired last week on the political front. And I kind of went back and forth on whether to bring this up, but from a very apolitical standpoint, we support our community regardless of political affiliation. I assure all of you, America is going to be just fine. But just remember that our kids are watching us at this time, and we need to model the kind of values and behavior that we aspire from our children. So. With that being said, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you, President Hernandez. You know what? I think mine's just going to be short and sweet this evening. Just grace and gratitude to all, and just encourage one another, like Mr. Miller just said, to be a model for kids. From parents to staff members to our community, Yeah, we live in this community because we believe in this community, and this next generation is our community of the future, and they're watching us, just like Mr. Miller said. So definitely, exceedingly human, Dr. Holman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Mr. Chacon.
Thank you, President Hernandez. Nothing really for me tonight. Just wanted to say thanks, Rick and James in the background, again, making all the action happen. 29 viewers today, and we got 3 thumbs up and 0 thumbs down. So if we're looking at the cup half full, good job tonight, guys. All thumbs up, 100%.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Stapp.
I'm sorry it takes me a minute because I have to switch programs. I would echo amen to everything that everybody said. I would like to thank Lynn McGuire for helping me out with the photos of the board, getting them updated on our website, and just working on getting that taken care of. I also want to just give a big shout out to, not everybody knows everything that goes on behind the scenes with the crisis team and the things that happen that have to be dealt with. And I really just am grateful for all of the crisis team members who work so hard to make sure that during these difficult times, that families and student needs are being met when there is something that is deemed a crisis. I also received an email today from Carasalis regarding some really good updates that they have and things that they're also adding to their program. So I will meet with them and then share that information out to the crisis team as well. And I signed up for a CSBA executive assistant program that they have, and I will be attending that for a total of 7 sessions that are, I think, 3 hours per session. And I will begin that in March and end that in June. As Dr. Holman has taught me very well for many, many years, we need to all be lifelong learners, because when we say we've learned everything, that's when we really have a problem. So I will be doing that as well. And really just a big thank you to everybody, for the board, for the people that I work with. Everybody is really working so hard, long, hard hours, weekends, everything. And so I just appreciate everybody. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Stapp. Wonderful. I really do appreciate that. Dr. Holman.
Thank you, President Hernandez. First of all, to all the board members, I want to share with you a couple calendar items for all of your consideration. I think just about all of you got to meet Mitch Hovey and Dick Bray, 2 former superintendents who have been supporting us in terms of not just providing for the new board member training, but on those 2 dates, February 9th and March 9th, what we would like to do is to hold study sessions before the regular board meeting that would start at 5 o'clock for closed session and 6 o'clock for open session. So from the times of 1 to 5, and to our 2 new board members, we've done this before over the course of last year, so it's familiar to them, but I'll make sure our new board members really understand this. What we're endeavoring to do is to really get together and do some work around organizational structures. It's not lost on I think the other 3 board members that we were doing work with Dr. Ralph Baker around our mission and vision. The values I think are really essential for us to continue to do work on, and that'll really begin some of the work that we'll do in February. Developing our core values, I should say redeveloping them, because we do have core values, but redeveloping those along with belief statements, and ultimately then aligning our goals toward those belief statements. all the while also knowing that we'll do some work around updating our governance handbook as well. And so really to you, President Hernandez, I turn it back over to you to see if all of you are comfortable with those two dates, February 9th and March 9th, in both cases from 1 to 5 o'clock. What I want everyone to know, we will have plenty of food and water available if in fact we can get it to you if we're together. So then we'll just have to ask you, since we aren't together, we'll have to just make sure that we're all at the ready in some way, shape, form. But I think it's fair for me to say we've gotten a lot of value out of these study sessions so that we can really poise ourselves for the work ahead. So President Hernandez, is it okay if I ask you to facilitate the notion of consensus if those dates and times would work?
Most definitely. Thank you. Yes, I find these study sessions so incredibly beneficial. The couple that we did have prior, being a new board member, really gets you into the groove of all that you need to do here. I guess my schedule could be more adaptive and available, so I'll open it up to the rest of the board. Does anybody have first any problem with those dates, or do you have an additional suggestion? We'll start member or Clerk Kalum.
Those days are okay for me.
Member Behringer.
It's good for me.
Wonderful. Member Bristol.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. with
conflicting times or dates or something. We try to do these study sessions that's most convenient for everybody. So if there's a standing conflict or something that we definitely can work with your schedule.
Thank you, President Hernandez, and thanks to all of you board members. I mean, it's a lot of time. I want to echo what President Hernandez said, particularly for the two new board members. And that is, I think we found these times to be incredibly valuable so that we can do the work that we need to do so that we can lead in ways that are really just like the servant leadership that we talked about, right? Serving the community well before ourselves. So thank you so very much. I'll make certain that I confirm those dates, and between Nancy and myself, we'll ensure that we get all the details out to all of you as we move closer to those dates. And then, I mean, just what wonderful comments that were started. I think Clerk Colomb, you were the very first person, I think, with board member comments all the way to Nancy and all of you in between. I just so echo everything that's been said. I guess since our last board meeting, we had a semester end, and boy, was that semester unprecedented. We started this journey, as you said, Member Bristol, it's COVID-19, right? We started that back on Friday, the 13th of March. And that was really, for the most part, a quarter. So we just completed an entire semester. And that's really where my messages are. Just a tremendous word of thanks to the entire Snowline learning community, beginning with you board members and providing the ongoing support, direction, and leadership to get ourselves to this point. All of the staff members, I'm just so very, I guess grateful is one of the stronger emotions that come to me. Just so grateful for their resiliency in providing the support necessary for every single child in Snowline. The parents, thank you for doing what you do that is just so untold. I don't know all that's happening in the homes, but I know so much is happening to ensure that our kids are doing the best they possibly can. And that really gets me to our students. It was said, if there's students listening, hope you know that that we do this for all of you. And I'm just so very impressed with the students getting to a point that we are right now. I don't know if I could have done it as well as I think the collective students are in today's day and age. So to all you students, please know that we love you all, we care for all of you, and we're going to continue to do what's best for all of you to ensure that this next semester can be as great as possible. And that's where I just end my comments. I mean, it seems like these, in some regards, we're in the darkest of times, but we've got a bright, burning light up ahead here, right? We're going to get through this. And I guess I just say, as Dennis Zimmerman mentioned, if we can all continue to be essentially human, all those greatest qualities of humanity, if we remember those, we're going to see that brighter light that we're moving toward through these dark times really take over the darkness. and sooner rather than later, we're going to be back to what we know that we all want. So I'm just thrilled to start this next semester with this team right here and everybody else in the Snowline learning community. Thanks so very much there, President Hernandez.
Thank you, Dr. Ullman. Really, to all the community joining us virtually this evening, we appreciate your participation and willingness to be part of this process. You're a big part of what makes Snowline the best district. There being no further business to come before the board, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move approval.
Thank you, Member Berenger. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Clerk Cologne. A roll call, Clerk Cologne.
Aye.
Member Berenger.
Aye.
Member Bristol.
Aye.
Member Flores.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
Thanks,
Good night,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.